What's happening, people? Welcome to Manu 2 Sports, breaking down the 2023 Red River Shootout between the Texas Longhorns and the Oklahoma Sooners. Both teams are headed to the Cotton Bowl undefeated. Only one team will leave that way. Let's talk about who and how we think this game is going to play out. Let's get into it.
Menu 2, let's go to work.
Welcome. Manuel here with Menu 2 Sports. We're talking Red River Shootout today. College football week 6 is underway. First game will be tomorrow. The Texas Longhorns and the Oklahoma Sooners will be heading down to Dallas, Texas to meet halfway at the Cotton Bowl and duke it out for the Golden Hat. The Golden Hat happens to be in Austin, Texas right now, courtesy of a 49-0 beatdown that the Longhorns handed the Sooners last year in this same game. I'm sure the Sooners are out for big revenge, and it should be a heck of a matchup, man. Both teams are coming in undefeated, 5-0 for the first time since 2011. Okay, and that makes for increased hype, increased energy. It makes for fan bases getting excited, fan bases feeling like, man, if we go in there and win Red River, we literally have a straight line shot at the Big 12 championship and potentially even the college football playoff. And let me tell you, as somebody who follows Texas, we've been waiting for this for over a decade. I mean, we have been waiting for a team that could make us feel like we have a shot for quite some time now, and we definitely feel it right now. It's foreign to us. We're definitely not taking it for granted. On the other hand, Oklahoma Sooner fans, you've probably been a bit spoiled as far as contending for Big 12 championships, contending for college football playoff spots. Even though you've yet to win a college football playoff game, you've played in plenty, and you've had plenty of success most seasons, aside from, last season. Even the year prior in Lincoln Riley's last season, it was a 2-loss season for the Oklahoma Sooners. They didn't get a chance to play in the Big 12 championship therefore they didn't get a chance to play in the college football playoff. But nonetheless, a two-loss regular season is, I can tell you, a season that most teams would take any given year, except for maybe the Georgias, Ohio States, and Georgias of the world. Okay, and that's where people aspire their teams to be. I believe that's the way that Texas is headed, and we'll see about Oklahoma. We'll see if Brent Venables can right the ship and turn this program. I don't want to say turn it around, because the reality of it is the program was in pretty good shape until Lincoln Riley left. Now, I understand he may have gutted it, if you want to say that, or maybe the team gutted itself because they didn't want to play for Brent Venables. Whatever the case may be, whether they left because they wanted to play for Lincoln Riley like Caleb Williams did, or whether they left because they felt like they wanted to try something else. That's what happens when you lose a coach, man. It causes chaos, especially in this age of the transfer portal. And then they went on to have a season that just doesn't live up to the OU standard, for sure. You don't lose 49-0 to Texas and have it be like, oh yeah, well, of course we were going to lose 49-0. We got a new coach. That's not the way these rivalries work, man. Texas and Oklahoma are proud college football programs, and they expect to be competitive. The fan bases expect to be competitive, and when that doesn't happen, then heads will roll. Nobody knows that better than us Texas fans. So both teams coming in undefeated. If you take a look at the schedules and take a look at what they've done, you could be impressed by all of it. Oklahoma has played Arkansas State, SMU, Tulsa, Cincinnati, and Iowa State. Combined, those teams are barely above 500 if you combine their records. So for those who say Oklahoma's played a cupcake schedule to this point, the proof is in the pudding. Oklahoma hasn't been tested, and I think they know that. Having said that, they believe they're better. They believe they're playing better. They believe defensively, holding opponents to 10 points per game speaks volumes, and the offense has been moving the ball. If I'm looking at it from the outside looking in, I have some questions about why 28-11 versus SMU. Why 20-6 versus Cincinnati? How come you put up 66 and 50 on Tulsa and Iowa State respectively, but you could only muster 20 against Cincinnati? Okay, and I believe the answer lies somewhere in the middle. Cincinnati's got a pretty good defensive line, and Oklahoma left some points on the field. So both things can be true, but there's still some questions to be asked there about that Oklahoma offense. Are they really as potent as they look? Or is it a symptom of the competition or level of competition that they've played thus far? Now you look at Texas. Okay, Texas starts off with Rice. That should have been a cupcake. Should have run right through them. Fact is, they didn't. They struggled to protect Quinn on the offensive line. They let a few stunts get to them. Gave up a couple sacks. And fans were somewhat concerned going into that Alabama game. It looks now, in hindsight, that Texas was probably preparing more for Alabama and did very little work on Rice, just because you kind of feel like Texas should just be able to go out there and get on the field and beat a team like Rice with the talent that Texas has. That shouldn't be a problem. And that's probably somewhat what happened. And the reason you can say that now is because having gone to Tuscaloosa and dominating the Alabama Crimson Tide, who as a team, as a roster, there are very few teams, if any, that have the talent that an Alabama does. You can argue maybe a Georgia. I don't even think there's a second. I'm not even gonna go Ohio State. They don't recruit like Alabama does. Okay, Alabama recruits top tier talent. They've got one of the top 2 or 3 more talented rosters in college football. So regardless of what changes they may be making, whether they're breaking in a new quarterback, which they were, they're still very talented. They're still very talented on the line, offensive and defensive, and they've got blue chip players all over the field. So the fact that Texas was able to go into Tuscaloosa at Bryant-Denny Stadium and basically walk down Alabama, beat them in the trenches, run the ball, throw the ball, and come out with a double-digit win speaks volumes to what this Texas team is capable of doing. A non-conference team had not gone into Tuscaloosa and won a game at night since Nick Saban got there his first year when he lost to Louisiana Monroe. So there you have it. That kind of gives you an idea of how significant that win was for Texas. Now, the narrative right after that, of course, is, well, this Oklahoma team is just not the same team. They looked really bad the very next week against South Florida. And people started, well, do we know how good Oklahoma is? Well, Nick Saban does what Nick Saban does, and he turns around the very next week and beats the hell out of Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss. And then they whooped up on Mississippi State last week, and they got the Texas A&M Aggies in College Station this week. So far so good. Alabama's proven they're still a quality team to be reckoned with, and I have a feeling they may still be the best team in the SEC based on what I've seen from Georgia this year. So, pretty good win for the Texas Longhorns. They then turn around and play Wyoming. You know, you can almost say, man, Texas, they had that great win against Alabama, and it would be fair to say after that, it's hard to make anything of the next 3 games because they played a backup quarterback versus Wyoming, a backup quarterback versus Baylor because Blake Shapen was hurt in their first game, and then they played a backup quarterback unexpectedly versus Kansas. That was a game that most people were very excited about. The Kansas team is known to be a well-coached team under Lance Leipold. Lance Leipold in his third year with Kansas, just like one Steve Sarkisian. So people were excited for that game. Unfortunately, Jalen Daniels wasn't able to play, and there you have it. Texas will not get the credit that they probably deserve for dismantling a Kansas team, in spite of the fact that the Kansas starting quarterback did not play. But I say always, and I say this about Oklahoma even last year. Okay, you have to know. Sure, there's always an injury or two. Like you look at a player or two or three on your roster that you're like, man, if we lose that player, we would be in trouble. So I understand that there's that. But having said that, especially at the quarterback position, you've got to have a serviceable backup. Okay, you don't get a pass if your backup goes down and all of a sudden you're getting blown out 49-0. That is not just on the quarterback. Okay, that means that not only did you fail miserably at making sure you had a serviceable backup, but your team overall is just not playing very well. So Brent Venables in Oklahoma, you don't get a pass for that beatdown last year at the hands of the Texas Longhorns 49-0. You better come in this year and show something, or else I can tell you right now, the temperature in Norman is going to ratchet up real quick. So if we get down to looking at this game, the first thing I'll say about it is there's a lot of energy coming from the Oklahoma side. There's a lot of folks, I think, maybe drinking the Kool-Aid, and none more so than one Teddy Lehman with the Oklahoma Insider, I believe. They were saying some things about the quarterback position and the offensive lines, and it seems like Kool-Aid drinking to me, but I'll let you hear it for yourself. Take a look and listen to what one Teddy Lehman from Oklahoma, former Oklahoma player, by the way. Teddy Lehman's played a lot of football at a high level, but he had some things to say about the quarterback position with Texas and Quinn Ewers that I just don't 100% agree with. Listen for yourself.
I think he's average. I think the offense creates a bunch of really good opportunities for him, and he's good at those, but I don't think he has elite arm talent. I don't think he has elite athleticism. I think and it's evident to me, where do you get exposed as a quarterback? You get exposed in the red zone.
So, Teddy Lehman thinks Quinn Ewers is average and doesn't have elite arm talent. Look, you could say both things can be true, or you can say, Teddy Lehman is crazy. I'm going to be honest here. I'm not going to come out here and say Teddy Lehman is crazy. Quinn Ewers is, the greatest thing since sliced bread, blah, blah, blah. No. Quinn Ewers is a quarterback. I've said this before. Quinn Ewers just this year, third game in, completed one full season of college football play. For all intents and purposes, Quinn Ewers is a true sophomore, playing his true sophomore year, having missed 2 games his freshman year, and starting his true freshman year at the University of Texas. You know how difficult that is? To come in to the University of Texas and start essentially as what amounts to a true freshman, okay? Beat out a guy that's been there 2 years, that had 1 year ahead of you in the system. Okay, that is difficult to do, man, but that is what Quinn Ewers did, and he did that because he's got talent. He did that. Sarkisian chose him as his starter last year because he can make all the throws, which means he's got elite arm talent. He was a perfectly rated 5-star coming out of high school. The first one since Vince Young, because he's got elite arm talent. So, Teddy Lehman, you might know a lot about football. You might know a lot more about football than me. But when it comes to Quinn Ewers, you're either hating, or you simply have not seen him in person, or you're just drinking Dylan Gabriel Kool-Aid. Because Teddy goes on to say in that piece that he believes Oklahoma has first he said massive, then he corrected himself and he's maybe not massive, large advantage at the quarterback position with Dylan Gabriel over Quinn Ewers. And in spite of the fact that I'm telling you Quinn Ewers is not a finished product, you could say he's an average quarterback at this point, and I would not dispute that. You can't tell me that there's a huge gap between him and Dylan Gabriel. There's no gap at all. Okay? Quentin Ewers not only has he proven that he can show up and win games, he's won bigger games than Dylan Gabriel. Okay? You can go back and look at Dylan Gabriel throughout his career at UCF and at Oklahoma and show me where he's had a significant win like what Quinn Ewers had in Tuscaloosa this year. Show me when he's played lights out in big games like Quinn Ewers did last year in Red River, like Quinn Ewers did last year in the first quarter versus Alabama. Okay, so this idea that somehow Oklahoma's got this massive gap, massive discrepancy at advantage at quarterback, it's just it's fool's gold. Teddy Lehman is drinking some sort of Kool-Aid up in Norman, and he's gonna be in for the rude awakening, man. I would tell Teddy Lehman, go back to the week after Texas played Alabama and listen to yourself. Listen to yourself. That Quinn Ewers is who's coming to Dallas, Texas, the Cotton Bowl on Saturday to take on your Oklahoma Sooners. Not whatever you've convinced yourself that he is now. Okay, because you want to believe your team is going to win. Teddy Lehman, whatever you've convinced yourself that Quinn Ewers is, that's not who you're going to see. Go back and watch that Bama game, and go back and listen to yourself the very next week after that Alabama game. Listen to what you had to say about this Texas team and Quinn Ewers so you can kind of see what might be coming. I see this game as being a double-digit win for the Texas Longhorns. Oklahoma just does not have what it takes in the trenches, specifically on the offensive and defensive line, to compete with Texas. Okay, Texas has better talent there. Texas has better talent at the running back position with Jonathan Brooks and C.J. Baxter. Texas has better talent at the tight end position. Steve Sarkisian, earlier in his press conference, announced that Jatavian Sanders will be a full go at the tight end position. So there's no disadvantage there. Texas is a full go. At the wide receiver position, Texas has 2 NFL draft picks on each side. They'll both be gone this year. Xavier Worthy and A.D. Mitchell. Jordan Whittington is probably a draft pick. And then the backups are serviceable as well. Jonte Cook is coming along. He's getting some playing time. He was a highly touted 5-star coming in this season. On the defensive side, the defensive line is stout. The linebackers, Jalen Ford was your preseason Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year. He should have won Big 12 regular season Defensive Player of the Year last year because he was the best one in the league, but he was robbed. And on the secondary, although this has been the group that has given up some big plays in a couple of games this season, they're solid. They're solid, and if they're dialed in, Oklahoma's going to have a hard time on Saturday with the Texas Longhorns. I'm predicting Texas to beat Oklahoma by a score of 42-20. Double-digit win for the Texas Longhorns in the Red River, and it will catapult them ahead. This will be probably their toughest challenge left on the schedule, but there's still a lot to be said there. Like I said, I find this Oklahoma team very suspect. I find this Oklahoma team to be somewhat fraudulent. There's a lot of talk about them holding teams to 10 points per game this year. They were doing the same stuff last year 3 games into the season until they played quality competition with Kansas State and TCU in Texas. After starting off with the Cupcakes and only giving them 10 points per game, Oklahoma went on to give up 36 points per game in Big 12 play in the bowl game. So that kind of gives you an idea of what Oklahoma puts on the field whenever they're not playing competition that is up to par. So that's my take on this Oklahoma Red River. We'll see how it unfolds. I'll keep you guys posted. We'll have more content on this rivalry, and we'll come back and talk a little more Pac-12, SEC, and how things are unfolding in college football. Thank you for joining in. Please like, follow, and subscribe. Follow us for more content. Thank you for listening to Many 2 Sports. Please don't forget to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and follow us for more content.